Hello again. Today I'm writing an expert advisor to implement a scalping strategy intended for 5-minute charts. This is a strategy I got from my big blue book of strategies. I have a setup showing on the chart here at the moment. The blue line is the slow moving average and the red line is the fast moving average. The slow is a 400 period exponential moving average and the fast is a 200 period exponential moving average. And this is the setup that I'm looking for. This is a sell condition where the fast moving average is below the slow moving average. The price has gone under the slow moving average, so it's crossed downwards across the slow moving average, and this would be my entry point. So if the fast moving average is below the slow moving average and the price crosses below the slow moving average, then we would enter a sell signal. And typically I would enter it at 50% of the size of this candle, and that would have made a profit here on the following candle. Just scroll this forward a little, and here is a setup in the opposite direction. Here the fast moving average is above the slow moving average, so we're in a buying mode. The price opened below and closed above the slow moving average, and that would be the entry point, looking for a profit target of half of the size of this candle, which we would hit around here somewhere. So those are the two entry conditions. It's quite a simple expert advisor, but I would not recommend this strategy to be used alone. I don't think it's a particularly good strategy. It's good to use for a programming example, but I think that if you're going to trade this, you may want to add some more features and some more conditions to it. But let's get into the code and I'll show you how we're going to write this. Now I have the MetaTrader editor open here. This is the MetaTrader 5 editor, MQL5. And I'm going to write this for both MQL4 and MQL5. There are very few differences between them. And I'm using a technique here that I've shown before, but this is the MQ4 file, so this is the MetaTrader 4 file, and all I have in here is a heading, the property statements for the copyright, link, version, and property strict, and then an include statement for 5-minute scalper.mqh. If I go to the MQ5 copy of the file, I have the same things. I have a heading, copyright, link, version, and an include statement for the 5-minute scalper.mqh. So this file is common between both the MQ4 and MQ5. The only difference between these two files is this property strict. In MQ4, property strict changes the way the compiler operates so that the language constructs operate the same way as they do in MQ5. In MQ5, there is no option. Everything is compiled in strict mode, and strict mode was introduced some time ago to basically bring the language up to date. So I always include that for MQ4. If you find it in an MQ5 file, it doesn't hurt, it's simply ignored by the compiler. So now I have both of these files. They include this one common file, so I can write all my code in there and it will run then on both MQ4 if I compile the MQ4 version and MQ5 by compiling the MQ5 version. So now let's look at the MQH file. So here's the start of my MQH file, which I'm including in both. Very similar. I've got a heading to begin with, and I've also included the property, copyright, link, and version here. Although they'll be ignored in this include file, they'll only be processed from the main MQ4 and the MQ5 files. And I've also included property strict here, although it's harmless to include it on the MQ5 version. Now the first thing we're going to need are some inputs so that we can set the values for those moving averages. Now although the strategy specifies a 200 period fast moving average, I like to allow these as inputs and let the user change their mind if they want to. So I've got first an input for the fast number of periods at 200. Then I have an input for the method being mode EMA by default. And the applied price is typically a closing price. And then I have the same inputs for the slow moving average. These are the same except for the number of periods, which is 400 by default for the slow moving average. And then some settings for that candle that crosses the slow moving average. first, I only want to process this if the candle is a certain minimum size. So I have this input minimum candle points, and I'm setting that at 20. So if the candle that crosses the slow moving average is less than 20 points in size, that won't trigger a trade. And then, as I said, I typically take profit at half of the size of that candle. So I'm specifying that here in percent. So the take profit percent is 50. And I have the same for stop loss. So it's a 1-to-1 profit loss ratio. And then just some standard inputs. The lot size that I'm going to be trading, 0.01 is my typical default lot size for testing. A trade comment, which I'm just defaulting to the file name. And this is a double underscore. I know you can't see the gap between them on the screen here, but this is underscore underscore file underscore underscore. And that's an inbuilt macro by the compiler. And then just a magic number so that the expert advisor can identify the trades that it has placed. And then because I have input the minimum candle points as points, I'm going to set up a variable just so that I can convert that to a price value. And now there are just a few things that I need to set up specifically for MQL5. I need to set up the trade object to handle my trading, and I want to set up the buffers for the indicators. So I'm including trade/trade.mqh. This is a file that's included with MetaTrader 5, and it includes a number of features that will allow me to trade more easily. It actually sets up a class object called ctrade that I can use to help with my trading. And so I'll declare a variable of that type ctrade, and I'm just calling that trade. That includes file will also bring in a second include file, which is the positioninfo.mqh file, and that gives me access to this cPositionInfo class, which also helps me to get information about positions. And then because the indicators are handled a little differently in MetaTrader 5, I need handles to the indicators and buffers. So I'll set up a handle to the fast indicator, a handle to the slow indicator, and a buffer for the fast and a buffer for the slow indicator. And that's specific code for MQL5, not needed for MQL4. And now, instead of going through the code from top to bottom, I have a number of functions that I'm going to be calling in the main blocks of code. So I'm going to write those functions first and explain those, and then hopefully the main block of code will make a little more sense as I go through that. So the first one is my typical new bar function. If you haven't seen this before, I'm declaring a date time variable, which I'm just calling now, and that will get the current start time for the open bar. So bar number 0 is the currently open bar. So calling the itime function, passing in the chart symbol and the chart period, that will give me the open time for the current bar. And then I declare a static date time variable calling prevtime, and I'm initializing that to the value of now. But this initialization, because it's a static variable, will only happen the first time this function is called, and every time after that, prevtime will hold the same value that it had when this function exited the last time. So because prevtime will have the same value that it had the last time, and now will keep changing it as a new bar opens, I can compare those two and determine if a new bar has opened. So the statement for the comparison is fairly simple. If prevtime is equal to now, then I know I'm in the same bar, and I just return false. And obviously if prevtime is not the same as now, then I want to reset it to be the same as now so that I won't get this triggered every time I call the function, and then I just return true. And now I have a number of functions that are similar but different between MQL5 and MQL4, so I'm actually going to put those inside specific sections for MQL5 and MQL4. So I'll set up these Ifdef statements, Ifdef MQL5 and Ifdef MQL4. This is double underscore MQL5 and double underscore MQL4. And then by putting functions inside here, they'll only be included if I'm compiling under MQL5 or MQL4. And I'm going to be putting the same functions in each of these sections. That way I can call the function name directly from the main block of code, but depending on which version of MQL I've compiled this under, it will only have one of those functions available. So first, in the MQL5 section, I'm setting up a function I'm calling custom init, and I can call this then from the main init in the main body of code, and I'll be calling it for MQL4 and MQL5 because I simply make the call once. And this will handle the special work that needs to be done in setting up either the MQL4 or the MQL5 version. So first, the MQL5 version. In MQL5, I'm using that trade object that I created from the ctrade class, and I need to set the expert magic number in that. So a one-time call to this to set that to the input magic number. And then I need to set up the handles to the two indicators. I'm using the moving average indicators. So the handle to the fast indicator, calling the IMA function, passing in the chart symbol, the chart period, the number of periods from the input, shift, which I'm setting as 0, the method, which is an EMA by default, and the applied price, which is a close price by default. If that fails, then handle fast will have the value invalid handle. And so if handle fast is invalid handle, then I just return init failed, and that will be returned from the init function in the main body of code. So then I do the same for the slow moving average, but here I'm just passing in the slow period, slow method, and slow applied price. And then I set the two arrays. So remember I created two arrays, buffer fast and buffer slow. Let me just scroll up, here they are, fast and slow. I set those as series, and that way element number 0 in buffer fast and buffer slow will line up with candle number 0, which is the currently open candle on the chart. And I like to have the buffers matching the candles on the chart. And at this point, nothing more to do, and since we didn't have errors here in the handles, I can just return init succeeded. Now in MQL4 I don't need any of that additional setup, but because I'm going to be just calling this function name, I need to include the function in the MQL4 section here. But because there's nothing to do, I'm simply going to return init succeeded. In a different expert advisor, there may well be some custom initialization for MQL4 as well. The next custom function I'm calling getMA, and this is because the method for retrieving those moving average values is different in MQL4 and MQL5. So rather than build that into the main body of code, I'm going to just call this one function getMA to get the moving average values, and it will work then for both MQL4 and MQL5. So the MQL5 version first. And because I'm returning both the fast and slow at the same time, I'm passing these two as arguments with the ampersand, so they're being passed by reference, and so I can simply set the values of these variables inside the function, and when the function exits, those will be set in the main body of code. So to get values from an MQL5 indicator, I've already retrieved the handle. I set the handle here, handle fast. I call the copy buffer statement, passing in the handle, the buffer number, the start position, so I'm starting with position number 0, and the number of elements that I want to retrieve. Now in this case I'm only going to be looking at element number 0, so I only need to get one back, and then the buffer where I want those values to be copied, and that I set up as a global variable earlier. That's the buffer fast. And then I do the same for the slow, copy buffer, handle slow, and into the slow buffer. And then I simply want to get these two values because I just want the individual values. I don't actually want the buffers. So fast MA then is just buffer fast element number 0, and slow MA is element 0 from the slow buffer. And then I can just return. And now in MQL4, getMA is slightly different. The function name's the same, the return type's the same, and the arguments are the same. They have to be the same because the compiler will only include either this or the MQL5 version, but I can call one from the main body of code. But here the function is still called IMA, but it doesn't create a handle in this case, it returns a value. So IMA for MQL4, passing in the chart symbol, the chart period, which is the time frame, the number of periods from the input, shift is 0, the method and the applied price, so arguments all very similar to the IMA function for MQL5, but here I also then say which value number I want back. So this doesn't come back into an array, this comes back as a single value. So I'm simply saying fastMA is equal to number 0 from this function, or index number 0. And then the same call for slowMA, and return. Now the next function I have is to actually open trades. And again, that's different in MQL4 and MQL5. So start with the MQL5 version. When I open a trade, I'm going to pass in the type, buy or sell, the price where I want to open that trade, the stop loss, and the take profit prices. And this is where I use that trade object. It has a function called position open. I pass in the chart symbol, the type, and I need to cast this to enum order type, otherwise I'll get a compiler error because it's passed in here as an integer, and I'm passing it as an integer here so that I can maintain compatibility between this and the MQL4 version of the same function. So I just include that casting statement there, enum order type. Input lots from the input statements, the open price from this argument, stop loss, take profit price, also arguments passed in, and then to trade comment. You notice there's no place here to enter the magic number, and that's why we set that at the beginning of the code. And that's all there is to opening the trade for MQL5. And now the MQL4 version. Remember, the same function signature, so the same return type, void, the same types of values being passed in. But for MQL4 we use the order send function. So order send, chart symbol, type, and I don't need to cast this. MQL4 will allow me to pass an integer there, as long as it's one of the valid integers for buy and sell. Lots, open price, slippage, which I'm setting at 0, which means I'm allowing unlimited slippage in this case. The stop loss price, take profit price, the trade comment, and for MQL4 we do pass the magic number into this function. Now I've wrapped this in an if statement. The compiler will give me a warning message if I call order send without capturing or doing something with the value that comes back. Order send returns the ticket number of the order placed and returns a negative number or 0 if that fails. And the compiler just wants to make sure I check that. Now I really don't want to check it here for this example, so I'm just placing an if statement around it. So by saying if order send, and then I'm finishing this with just bracket bracket, it just suppresses the compiler warning. And that's all for the open trade function for MetaTrader 4. And the final function that is also different between MetaTrader 4 and MetaTrader 5 is a trade count. And this returns an integer, and I'm just counting the number of trades that are currently open for this particular expert advisor. So I'm initializing the trade count to 0. For MetaTrader 5, I get this positions total value, which tells me the total number of positions I have across all symbols and all magic numbers. And then I'm going to loop through for I equals 0, while I is less than count. The first thing I have to do is try to select that position, and there's the position info. Now this is the object that I created earlier. Let me scroll back up here. There it is. Type C position info. I created this object position info. Now position info has a method called select by index, and I'm passing my index I, and that returns a boolean. So if not select by index, then continue, which will loop through and go to the next iteration of this loop. But if that's successful, then I will have the values from that position in memory. And so because I have the values from that position in memory, I know the symbol and the magic number from that position. So the position info object also gives me this symbol method and magic method. And I'm saying here, if symbol from the position is not equal to the chart symbol, or it's not equal to my magic number, then it means that this is not a position that this expert has created. And again, I'll just continue, which will loop me back to the next iteration of the loop. But assuming I got past that statement, then I know that this is a trade that's been placed by this expert. And all I need to do then is do trade count plus plus, which just increments the counter by 1. And then at the end of that, I just return trade count. And the MQL4 version of that function is very similar. I'm still initializing a trade count variable to 0. In this case, the count of the total number that I'm going to process is coming from the orders total function. The same loop. This is very similar, but here I use the function called order select. So if not order select, but the order select function takes 3 arguments: the index number, the type of selection, so I'm selecting by position because I can also simply pass in a ticket number. So I need to let it know that I'm selecting by position number, and the mode, because I can also select history using this. So I'm selecting from mode trades, which means I'm looking at the open trades. And if that order select fails, then I'll just continue, which will loop back to the beginning of the for statement. The same tests here, but in this case there is a function called order symbol and a function called order magic number, which will give me the symbol and the magic number. And if they're not equal to the chart symbol or the input magic number, then I'll continue. And if all that passes, then I just increment the trade counter, and at the end I return that. So what I've done then here, I've created 2 sections, an Ifdef MQL5 and an Ifdef MQL4. They contain the same function names with the same arguments and the same return types. So by calling these functions from within the main block of code, because the compiler will only either include this group of statements or this group of statements, I'll be calling the appropriate functions for MQL4 or MQL5. So now let's go back to the main block of code and write the rest of this. So we begin with the usual onInit statement. This min candle size that I defined here is there because we're setting the min candle points, and I want to convert that 20 or whatever was input points into an actual price size. And so I'm doing that by multiplying the min candle points by point bracket bracket. So this gives me the size of a point for the current chart symbol, that point function. So multiplying the size of a point by the number of points gives me the size of the minimum candle. And then I simply return custom init, and because custom init exists for both MQL4 and MQL5 now, and it returns a value which is either init succeeded or init failed, I can just return from a call to that. On dinit, I've included it here, but I'm not doing anything in on dinit. And now the OnTick, where all the work happens. If trading's not allowed, I just want to exit. So there's a function account info integer, and I can call that and pass in the argument account trade allowed, which will tell me if I'm allowed to trade currently on this account. And there could be a lot of reasons why trading's not allowed. It might be specific to your account, or it might be that the broker has closed down. So by calling that, and I'm casting it to a Boolean because it returns an integer, so I can turn that to a Boolean. If trading's not allowed, then I'm just going to return because there's no point in going any further. There's nothing that I can do. I only want to trade once per bar, and that's where I call the new bar function, which you can still see here. If this is not a new bar, then I'm just going to return. And I also want to exit if there's already a trade open. So this particular scalping expert advisor will only have one trade open at a time. And that's why I have the trade count function. And if trade count returns a number greater than 0, then I'm going to return here. And now I just need to get the values for the indicators. First I create the two variables, fast MA and slow MA, because I need to pass those into the get MA function. And then I call get MA, which fills in the fast moving average or the slow moving average. And then I also need to close prices, because remember I'm looking for that candle to cross past the slow moving average line. So I need the close value from candle number 2, and to get that I'm calling the iClose function, the symbol name, the period, and candle number 2. And I also then need close for candle number 1, so I'm calling this close 1, same function, but I'm asking for candle number 1 there. So what I'll be looking for here is that close number 2 was to one side of the slow moving average and close number 1 is to the other side of the slow moving average. And then I also want the size of that candle, because remember I'm setting the take profit and stop loss based on a percentage of the candle, and I also only want to process if this candle meets the minimum size. So to get that I'm looking for the high with the iHigh function for chart symbol, chart period, candle number 1, and subtracting from that the low with the iLow function for symbol, period, and candle number 1. So that gives me the total height from high to low of candle number 1, which is the one that's just closed. So now I'm declaring some variables. TP size is the size of that take profit amount, size of the stop loss, and then I need to convert those into actual prices, because those sizes are just going to give me a portion of the candle size. I need to add or subtract those from the current entry price to come up with the take profit and stop loss prices. So take profit price and stop loss price, and then an open price, which is where I'll be actually opening the trade. Now, do I meet a buy condition? And here are the 3 conditions that must be met. The fast moving average is above the slow moving average, greater than slow moving average, and close 1 is above the slow moving average, and close 2 is less than the slow moving average, which means that I've crossed above the slow moving average and the fast is already above the slow, and the candle size is greater than or equal to the minimum candle size. So if it's a tiny candle, I'm not going to process. If all of that's met, then I'll calculate the take profit size, which is going to be the candle size multiplied by that take profit percent, and because that's a percentage, divide by 100. The same for the stop loss size. And then I get the open price using symbol info double, passing in the symbol and asking for the ask price, because this is a buy trade. And then the take profit price, I add the take profit size to that open price, and I'm calling normalized double, passing in digits. This digits function will return the number of digits for the current chart symbol. And the same for the stop loss price, except in this case it's open price minus the stop loss size. And then I'll call that open trade function that we've already written, passing in the order type, buy, the open price, the stop loss price, and the take profit price. And that's the buy condition. Now the sell condition is the opposite. Fast moving average is less than the slow moving average, close 1 is less than the slow moving average, and close 2 is above the slow moving average. So we've now crossed from top to bottom on the slow moving average. The candle size though is still greater than or equal to the minimum candle size. And then the take profit and stop loss size calculations are the same. There's still candle size multiplied by take profit percent and stop loss percent. The open price is different. I need to get the symbol bid for an open price on a sell trade. And then take profit. Similar calculation, but in this case, open price minus take profit. And for the stop loss, open price plus stop loss size. And then I call open trade, but in this case I'm passing order type sell. And that's the end of the OnTick function. So that's everything for this expert advisor that trades on the 5-minute chart. As I said at the beginning, this is not a great strategy. It will come out to somewhere around break even, I would expect, over the long term, but it's a starting point where you can modify some of the inputs and maybe add some extra conditions to give yourself an extra edge. So I hope you found this useful. If you have, then please click the like button, and if you want to see more of our videos, click subscribe, and then if you click the bell icon, you'll actually be notified when we release new videos. So until the next time, thank you for watching.